Hello students, welcome back. So in this session, we are going to be covering conditional if, elif, and else statement. So this is your general expression of your if, elif, and else statement. Elif, by the way, is a short for else if. So if this Boolean expression is true, it's going to execute this block of code. Else if this Boolean expression is true, it's going to execute this block of code. Else if, otherwise, if this expression is true, it's going to execute this block of code. On the other hand, if none of these expressions are true, all of them turns out to be false, then it's going to execute this last line of code, this block of code. So let's understand this through some examples. Let's say you want to check a student score. So if the score is more than 50, okay, if the score is more than 50, you want to print this message. Otherwise, you don't want to do anything. You're just gonna print this right here, moving on to next evaluation. Let's say this student scored 40, and let's run this thing. So this score is equal to 40. So because it's 40, this condition is false. That's why it does not print these statements. That's why it just prints the one last statement right here, which is not part of the if statement. So it prints moving on to next evaluation. Let's change this to 60. Let's say the student scores, 60. I run this. Now, if this condition turns out to be true because score is more than 50 or 60 is more than 50. So it prints out these statements right here, as you can see, and then at the end, it prints out moving on to the next evaluation. Okay, then there is a if and else statement. So in this case, I was just using only if by itself. I was not using the other statement. So now I'm going to use if with else statement. So here I'm doing is this. This is what's happening over here. If the score is more than 50, it's going to execute these series of print statement. Otherwise, if this condition is not true, it's going to execute this line of code. And at the end, it's going to print, at the end, it's going to print this right here. So let's run this. My score is 70. So if I run this, it's going to print the student score is above average. It prints out these statements because this one turns out to be true. Now, if I change this, let's say maybe 40, okay, let's make it 40. Now, as soon as I run this, as you can see, this is not true anymore. So now it's going to print the else clause right here. So it prints the student score is below average, the student score is below average, and there might be room for improvement. And at the end, it prints out this last statement right here. Okay, then there's a if and else. So in this is another example. So here, let's say the user is entering a number, and based on the number is entering, it's going to print even and odd. So here I'm taking my input from the user. I'm typecasting into integer because every time when a user enters a number, a data is always a string. So I'm typecasting into integer. Then I'm checking over here whether it's even or odd. And based on that, I'm printing a number, even number or odd number. So let's say the number is 4. I had 4. And as you can see, it's even number. Let's run this program again. And this time I enter maybe 9 and hit it again, and it prints out odd number. So here, this is the clause that's checking whether it's even or odd. If this is even number, it's going to print even number. Otherwise, it's going to print odd number. Now, let's understand if, elif, and else statement through an example. Let's say students are given grades based on their exams. Okay, if a student scores between 100 to 90, he's given A. If he scores between 80 to 90, he's given B. If he scores 70 to 80, he's given C. Otherwise, if he scores less than 70, he's given F. So in this case, this is the logic I'm implementing. I'm saying if the marks is more than 90, okay, more than or equal to 90, then give him grade A and all this series of message. On the other hand, if the marks is more than or equal to 80, then give him this print this series of message. Otherwise, if your marks is more than or equal to 70, then print these message. Otherwise, else, if none of these conditions are true, all these conditions are false, none of them actually turns out to be true, then at the end, print this message right here. All right, so let's give this student some marks. Let's start with 25. So I run this and it prints out grade F. Buddy, wake up, start studying, because none of these conditions are true. Actually, let's start with something small, bigger. Let's say 95. Okay, if I hit 95, it's gonna print grade A, congratulations. So you see that? So this condition turns out to be true, and because of that, it prints grade A, congratulations. Let's make this thing as 85 now. So 85, in this case, this clause comes out to be true right here. So when I run this, as you can see, it prints grade B, good work. Okay, because this clause comes out to be true. Now let's change his score from 85 to 75 now. I run this code, and now it's going to run this part because this clause comes out to be true. So when I run this, it prints out grade C, good work, but you can do better. And let's change his score now to 65 now. If I change to 65, None of these conditions are true. And because of that, it's going to execute this block of code, the last one, the else clause right here. And as you can see, it executed the else clause. Okay, now let's look at nested if statement. So let's say this is the logic you want to implement, that if age is more than 18 and he has a driver license, then he's eligible to drive. On the other hand, if age is more than 18 and has no license, then you want to print this message. You are eligible to drive but need driver license to be on the road. This is what you want to print. On the other hand, if age is less than 18, then you want to print not eligible to drive. So what I did basically, let's say I initialize my age equal to 13 and has license equal to false. So let's actually give him license equal to true. Okay, true. And let's say his age is, let's start with 20. Okay, 20. Okay, so implementing this logic, so what I'm checking that if age is more than or equal to 18, then after that I'm checking if he has license, it's going to print this message. On the other hand, if he does not have license, then it's going to print this message. On the other hand, if age is not more than 18 or not equal to 18, then it's going to print this message. So in this case, let's say I give 20. Okay, I enter this, and as you can see, it prints right here. It prints you are eligible to drive because this condition gets passed, and this also condition is true. Oh, that's why it prints that. Let's change this to false right here. Okay, let's change this to false. Okay, false. All right, so I change this to false now. Now what's happening when I run this, you can see it's going to print you are eligible to drive, but you need a driver license. That's because this condition is satisfied, but this is not satisfied. Okay, so it prints this clause right here. Okay, let's change this to maybe uh, f- uh, 12. Okay, so in this case, this condition does not get satisfied. So at the end, it does not even go through this thing anymore. It just bypasses this completely. It comes straight over here at the else clause and it prints you are too young to drive and you are younger than 18, and prints this message right here. Okay, you can combine if with or. So in this case, I'm checking if the age is less than 13 or 86 or greater than 65. Maybe I'm checking this. I'm printing some message based on that. So let's say if the age is less than 13 or age is more than 65, I want to give this message. You are eligible for a child or a senior ticket. Otherwise, else you are not eligible for a child or senior ticket. So let's say the age is 11. And when I run this, it actually says you are eligible because this condition is satisfied. This is not satisfied, that's okay, because in this or clause you just need one of them to be true. So this is true, and because of that it prints out this message. How about if I change this to maybe 15? So if I change this to 15, run this, it says you are not eligible to drive. Sorry, you are not eligible for a child or a senior ticket. That's because my 15, it is between 13 and 65. It is not out of the range. Okay, so that's why it prints that message. Let's change this to maybe 70 now. So if I hit enter 70, and now it says you are eligible for a child or senior ticket. That's because this clause is satisfied. This becomes true. So, and because there's an or over here, so this whole thing becomes true over here. So it prints out this message. You can also do if with and. So in this case, I'm checking user credentials. So username is asking a user to enter his username, then asking the user to enter the password. So if the username is admin and the password is 12345, it's gonna print successful login. Otherwise, it's gonna print invalid login. So let's run this. So let's say username is admin. Let's start with username admin and password. Let's say 12345. Okay, and I hit enter and it says successful login because both the conditions are satisfied. Let's run this again. This time I enter maybe some Jerry. Okay, let's say some name Jerry. Password is 12345. Enter invalid login. That's because username turns out to be false. So if this condition is false, then and there's an AND clause, so it doesn't matter what the password is. This whole thing is false right here, and that's why it prints invalid login. So I think you got an idea now. So all right, students, thank you.